The astrology of the spring equinox, the astrological new year, the sun's ingress to 0 degrees Aries, the very beginning of the entire wheel of the zodiac. This is an important ingress chart because it summarizes the entire spring season of spring 2025, but it also tells a story of the backdrop of major themes that we'll be dealing with of the entire astrological year from March 20th, 2025 to March 20th, 2026. Hello, my name is Eliane Nicole. I'm your astrologer and tarot reader, and in this video, I am going to talk about the spring equinox birth chart, Equinox 2025, and the story that it tells of our entire spring season and the entire year moving forward to next spring. But first, I want to say, if you are watching this on Instagram, please make sure that you are following astrology.tarot.Eliane Nicole, but I'm only going to post the first 3 minutes of the video on my Instagram. The entire video will be available on my YouTube channel, Eliane Nicole. My YouTube channel is simply my name, Eliane Nicole. Please find me there. There will be a link in the profile bio of my Instagram to get there. There's also a link in the profile bio of my Instagram to just go to my website and book a reading with me. If you're watching this on YouTube, please make sure that you are subscribed to my channel. Please hit the notification bell so you're notified every time I post a new video. Please like, please comment, please share. It helps me in the algorithm and to grow my business and my community and my channel, and puts me in a position to continue to give these free astrological offerings. And now, without further ado, I want to say, I'm going to just get into the translation. And 0 degrees Aries is such an important point for us to understand in our birth charts right now. And that's what this spring chart is really, the spring equinox chart is all about. The sun highlighting that point and really highlighting what it is that's going on this spring and for the entire year. And the sun is conjunct Venus and Mercury, all in Aries. Venus and Mercury are both retrograde. And so because of that, there's definitely a retrograde feeling to the entire spring season and to the entire year in terms of Venusian topics like relationships, beauty, art, romance, style, attraction, pleasure, all of the things, money in some cases, all of the things that Venus can represent. And then there's also, it looks like there's a Mercury retrograde tone to the entire season. And that means, Mercury being in Aries, it's a very blunt Mercury. It can be a very impulsive Mercury. So people can be, saying things that, without thinking, that ignite fires or conflicts or confrontations or things like that. There can be a lot of the burning of bridges with words. But I do feel like Mercury being next to Venus mitigates that a bit because Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, being next to Mercury usually means beautiful words, well-written words, well-articulated words that are put together in beautiful ways. And so I do think that, this season will produce that, like people who have beautiful things to say, but about the Aries topic. So on the one hand, I think this is going to be a lot of announcements of exciting new starts, people launching new businesses and people launching new ideas. When we're talking about Aries, this is like trailblazing ideas, this is pioneering ideas, this is startups. When you get Mercury and Venus together, I think of writers, I think of poets, and I think of speakers, but they're speaking about Aries things. So they're speaking about what's new. But then there's also the side of Aries, it's like the revolution, and so you see people, Aries is war. Aries is ruled by Mars, the god of war. So people are talking about the war, people are arguing, people are talking about conflicts. But in this alignment, I almost see like the rise of a very beautiful, charismatic, revolutionary leader in this cycle. Maybe a woman. That's something that's in the astrology. And in general, there's this big story in the chart of this, Pisces pileup, which we have Neptune, the North Node, and Saturn all kind of conjoining in Pisces. And then Ceres, the asteroid Ceres, is also in Pisces. She's not quite conjoined yet with Saturn and the North Node and Neptune. Saturn is moving closer to Neptune. And so that has to do with like reality and sci-fi completely merging and us not being able to tell the difference between what's real and what's fake. That's one of the things that's happening with the Saturn Neptune. It can also bring form to the dream. I don't want to go down a Saturn Neptune rabbit hole because actually I'm going to do a separate video about that closer to when that alignment is going to be exact. But it's coming into being in this spring equinox chart, and so it colors the entire season, and it colors the tone of it, colors the entire year. And there's a lot about what's real and what's imagined becoming one, in some ways. And this can be also the dissolution of systems and structures that we've known for a long time. It can be the death of spiritual leaders, it can be the death of doctors and healers. It can mark, the death of addicts or painters or poets or filmmakers. There's a spectrum of what's going on here. It definitely looks like, major spiritual leaders may be leaving the planet in this cycle, very kind of world renowned. But that's on the collective level. But within our own lives, it can be, your priest, your rabbi, your imam. I mean, I don't want to wish that upon anyone, but it looks like older spiritual leaders are definitely, kind of passing the baton or passing over in this cycle. The moon is in Sagittarius, but it's a dying moon in Sagittarius. It is conjunct the asteroid Juno, so I do think that this is like a very kind of adventurous time for relationships, for marriages. People can be exploring new territory together, either literally traveling or having, cross-cultural experiences, but it can be more just trying new things in general, together. And I digress. I wanted to stick more in this Pisces Aries story because that's the big picture of what's going on. Big endings and big new starts. And it's like the Aries portion of our chart is trying to get off to this big new start, and the Pisces portion is pulling us. It's like the tide, the current that's pulling you in, even though you're trying to swim in the other direction. But that Pisces current is wanting us to do a couple of things. One, there's some tying up of loose ends from the past in that Pisces section of our chart. But that Pisces section of our chart is also wanting us to do a lot of inner work, a lot of emotional work, and a lot of spiritual work. And so you know, there's a lot of chaos and confusion and messiness and vagueness in that area of our chart. And, you know, the Virgo South Node is on the other side of our chart, making us release things, detox, purge, cleanse, edit, weed, all of that is happening. And but there's a certain amount of just like kind of vagueness and chaos and lack of clarity that we have to wade through during this time. And it appears to be an invitation from the universe to just really get in touch with faith and cultivate that faith muscle, if you will, that's being developed in us. Also, you know, creativity and artistry, you know, is being developed in many of us. You know, the Pisces energy has so much to do with composing music and filmmaking and painting and photography, anything to do with images, but Pisces is also the drums, it's dance, you know, and so, but Pisces Virgo axis is also very much about getting our health in order and not being vague about what's going on with our health, because it does appear with this Virgo South Node that details may be getting lost. You know, important health details that are being lost right now. And so it behooves us all to just be on top of that for ourselves during this spring season, but also over this year. And yeah, so big endings, big goodbyes, but also new starts. The new start is trying to emerge, and it will emerge. It's the future. You know, I call, as long as I've been looking ahead at 25 and 26 in the astrology, I've always said that they kind of almost read as 1 year to me. And this spring equinox chart really speaks to that, because, you know, it's like 2025 is the introduction to your new life, but 2026 is full immersion in the new life. And we can't have that full immersion in the new life until we have, you know, kind of swam through these deep Pisces waters. And, you know, we can't rush that process, really, of all that's calling for within us, you know. And for a lot of people, that's calling for emotional work, you know, like cultivating our emotional intelligence further, cultivating our emotional boundaries, emotional maturity. For some people, this is just about being in the creative space and doing the work, you know, creating the work and the time that it takes to do that, you know, before the next phase, you know, or again, getting clarity on health is a big thing here. For some people, it's needing to connect to, you know, cultivate the spiritual life more, the connection to the divine, the conscious contact with God, whatever that is for you. And you know, so with Pisces, it can really be any of these things. And then I also see in this chart, a lot of people are struggling with addiction right now. You know, it shows the potential for, you know, an uptick in overdoses from drugs right now. It shows the potential in an uptick of suicides, you know, and like all of that is very much reflected in the Pisces energy. It shows uptick in homelessness, you know, and I think that there's, you know, in general, there are many people who are feeling that they're having an existential crisis right now. It's a crisis of faith, you know, so Pisces runs the gamut from the most beautiful, ethereal, kind of transcendental, mystical, religious, divine, and beautifully kind of creative, and this amazing artistry to, you know, doctors and healing and medicine. And there's all of that beauty in the Pisces energy, the oneness that connects us all. I love all of that. But then there's also the very dangerous side of the Pisces energy, the escapist energy that just wants to escape all the harsh realities and the suffering of humanity, and might do so through drugs or alcohol or just, you know, binging on Netflix, which isn't as, you know, unhealthy as drugs or alcohol. But if that's all somebody's doing all day long, that can become unhealthy to their lives. But, you know, the best of it is channeling that energy into creativity or mysticism and meditation. And, you know, and so geologically for the collective, we see a lot with fire and a lot with water. So floods and fires are still coloring the spring season. There's a lot going on around the ocean. I wouldn't be surprised if the General of the Marines becomes in the forefront of the news. And at the time of me recording this video, let me just say for the record, he has not come to the forefront of the news yet. He is not in the news as I record this video. I'm recording this March 23rd. I wanted to release this video before the spring solstice, but I'm late. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. I do expect whoever is the general head of the Marines, and I should probably just even look up his name, to come into the forefront of the news cycle during this time because of everything going on in Pisces. And when I look at the DC chart, that's all in the second house. His name is General Eric M. Smith, the 39 and current commandant of the Marine Corps. Okay, let's watch out for him to come into the news, and I will repost this little section of the video when that happens. But yeah, the interesting thing is I have the world chart, the USA chart, and the LA chart in front of me, and I may or may not get into them because I don't want this video to get too long. But what's interesting is they all have a different rising. So even though I'm looking at the same planets and the same transits, they're affecting the world, America, and LA all slightly differently. I mean, you know, America and LA are within the world, so that chart also applies to them. But you see how we can go from the more general to the more and more specific. It's like zooming out or zooming in. That's really what these charts are. They're like lenses for us to organize and look at the sky and read the language of the cosmos. So anyway, I digress. But yeah, so the big themes, the big broad themes, big endings, big beginnings, big endings in the Pisces sector of our chart, big beginnings in the Aries sector. You know, that Aries sector is trying to get going, but there's unfinished business that it's getting pulled into. There's like, you know, revisions, revising, reviewing the past. And yeah, I guess that's what I want to say about that. And I also want to say that 29 degrees Pisces and 0 degrees Aries are incredibly important points of the zodiac in general, because 29 degrees Pisces is the very, very end of the zodiac wheel, and 0 degrees Aries is the very, very beginning of the zodiac wheel. But this year in 2025 and in 2026, these points are so important, and they have everything to do with this new world that's being born and this old world that we are letting go of and saying goodbye to. And so knowing where 29 degrees Pisces and 0 degrees Aries is in your personal chart is so important, because what's being born here is like, you know, what's being let go of and what's being born is more than a once in a lifetime type of experience. You know, it took Neptune 165 years to come back to this point. You know, and as I do this reading, I'm talking about the sun being at 0 degrees Aries, but Neptune is on its way there in this Ingress chart. Neptune's right at 29, conjunct the sun, out of sign, bringing together the Pisces chart, the Pisces house in our chart, and the Aries house. Big goodbyes, big endings, big new starts. You know, big finales, sometimes actually of a very emotional nature, and then exciting new starts but that are also kind of being held up with some delays and postponements at the same time. So, that's the big for the spring and for the entire year. It's kind of coloring the energy. And so, but the new moon, we've got a solar eclipse coming up. I'll be back with a solar eclipse video. Oh, that reminds me. We are in the eclipse portal, the eclipse sandwich, whatever you want to call it. I realize portal can be a triggering word for some people because it starts sounding a little too woo-woo, and I could talk about that in another way, why it's not so woo-woo, but that's another video for another time. I want to say that one thing about eclipses is because of the way eclipses are all about the light. So even if portals sound triggering to you, we can agree that eclipses alter the light of the earth because it's all about the relationship of the sun and the earth and the moon, and that's what's creating the shadow on the moon during the lunar eclipse, which we just came out of, and the shadow on the sun of the solar eclipse, which we're heading towards. And that means that the light is off. That means our perspective and our perception on things is off because we can't see things as we normally would be able to. There are things that are obscured from view when you're in the eclipse portal. The light is off. We're looking at things differently. And this may have its benefits in some cases, but it also has its cautions because it's, I think creatively there are tremendous benefits, and I'm always looking at the planets from an artistic point of view as an artist and someone who reads for a lot of artists. But then there's also just the, regular mundane point of view when you're not talking about creativity and just within our lives, that we're not seeing things as they are necessarily. We're not seeing everything that's in the environment. Things are obscured from view, and yet we're making fated choices. This is about when we're inside the eclipse portal, the eclipses have to do with the nodes of fate. And in this case, this is a double axis that we're dealing with because the partial or the total lunar eclipse was in Virgo, and the solar eclipse that we're heading towards is in Aries. So this is bringing the Virgo Pisces axis and the Aries Libra axis to our charts. So this has so much to do with relationships, our own direction and our own autonomy and our own individuation, but with health and spirituality and materialism and, so many different, our emotional world, our intellectual world, like so much is on the table for us during this eclipse. It can be, and it can express for different people in different ways. We're in the midst of just huge endings and new beginnings. We're being birthed into this new world. I guess the caution is just to be careful of what we say, because Mercury is in Aries conjunct the sun at this Ingress chart. Mercury in Aries can be very blunt and very bold with his statements, and sometimes burn bridges with words, sometimes be very argumentative. As far as the other aspects go, the sun conjunct Neptune, the sun conjunct the North Node, we are aligning with a new North Node as a collective that has to be based in understanding the oneness of humanity and how we are all connected as one. We're one organism, and that we all have to be okay for any of us to be okay. Let's see. Sun trine Juno, Mercury trine Venus. There are so much I can say about these different various aspects that are going on in this chart, but it would make the video really long. And so I think I'm going to tie it up there. But if you want a reading about your own chart in the spring equinox chart, it's a great reading to get because it will give a summary of your entire spring season as well as your entire astrological year. And I would love to do it for you. Astrology works best when you're working one-on-one with an astrologer. I read on Zoom, so I can read for people anywhere in the country, anywhere in the world. I would love to read for you. I will put a link in the description of my YouTube to get to my website, ElianeNicole.com, and book a reading with me. Or if you would just like to thank me for this general reading by buying me a coffee or a tea or a croissant, I will also put a link in the description for my Venmo to make a donation. And as I go, I will leave you with a tarot pull as well. And yeah, I could have started getting into the specific transits, but I just think it's going to make the video too long, and I'm just going to... Ooh, the Lovers reversed. Well, this can be a card about lovers not seeing eye to eye. It can be the unraveling of a relationship. You know, it can be needing to make an important choice. You know, sometimes this has to do with creative collaborations, as well as romantic partnerships. But yeah, I mean, I think that, you know, as the Aries ingress happens at 0 degrees, that solar eclipse is having to do with the nodal axis that we're leaving. And that was the Aries Libra axis, which is the me-we axis. You know, the axis of self versus others. And the nodes of fate were on that axis from July 2023 to January 2025. And so this solar eclipse that we're heading towards is the final eclipse. So it's really tying up that old story, which for a lot of people did have to do with a letting go of an old relationship in order to move forward with this new life. And so I think that that's what this Lovers, you know, and that might be a romantic relationship, that might be a close friendship, that might be a creative collaboration. But there is this, you know, kind of final letting go of that, I think, which is a part of the Aries Libra axis. And then we're kind of embarking on this Virgo Pisces axis. But what's interesting is that there's a big letting go there too. So, you know, it's like we're letting go in the kind of the Libra area, the, you know, the Virgo area, the Pisces area. There's so much letting go happening for everybody. But this Aries energy is really trying to ignite and initiate the new start. So yeah, it's a deep time. It's a deep time. All that Pisces energy is very, very deep right now. And I think a lot of people are feeling very sleepy and very tired. You know, that Neptune Sun conjunction makes people exhausted. It makes people feel zapped of energy. You know, but it's also great alignments for dreaming the dream and having the vision for the future, doing the vision work, doing the dream work that's important right now. You know, but, you know, this is just, it's tricky energy. It's tricky energy. And I will be exploring it more in the videos of the future. You know, the Pisces, the Sun conjunct the North Node in Pisces and Neptune. But I just wanted to stop in and say something about this spring equinox chart, because it is an important chart. It does tell a lot about the entire season and the entire year. And thank you so much for joining me. And please give me feedback, comments, likes. You know, I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. Please help me out. Okay, thanks for joining me. Bye-bye.